The cathedral's chill was more than just the absence of warmth. It was the weight of centuries pressing down, a suffocating presence that seemed to seep into my bones as I traced my fingers along the cracked, blood-stained manuscripts scattered across the altar's shattered surface. The flickering candlelight danced upon the fragile parchment, casting long, trembling shadows that warped the faded Latin inscriptions into grotesque shapes, as if the very words sought to claw their way out of the pages. I swallowed hard, the air thick with dust, and something far more ancient, something that carried the bitter tang of despair and unspeakable horror. These documents told a story of a choir once revered throughout the city for their celestial voices and divine grace. Their music had once lifted souls, a beacon of hope in a dark world. Yet, beneath the surface of their harmonious perfection, there lingered an obsession, desperate yearning for immortality through their art. Father Ambrose, the priest whose name haunted the margins of these texts, had sought to grant the choir eternal life, to etch their song into the fabric of time itself. But the ritual he performed was no blessing. It was a curse forged in blood and desperation. The ancient ritual bound the choir's souls to their melody through a sacrificial covenant, a crimson thread weaving them into an unending hymn that consumed identity and will. What had been a sanctuary of music became a prison of eternal torment. Their voices, once pure and radiant, twisted into a spectral chorus of agony and longing. I felt a cold breath against my neck and turned sharply to find Sister Miriam's ethereal figure standing silently beside me, her tattered habit swaying as if caught in a phantom breeze. Her eyes, glowing faintly red, held centuries of sorrow. They were not monsters. Her voice was a fragile whisper, barely audible over the faint hymn that now echoed through the cathedral's cavernous halls. They were victims of hope turned to madness, bound by a covenant they could never escape. I listened, rapt and trembling, as she recounted the choir's descent there, joyous singing giving way to discordant madness as the ritual's power ate away at their souls. They had hoped to transcend death through music, but instead they became its prisoners, their voices a relentless dirge that echoed through these hallowed walls. Visions swirled around me, unbidden and vivid. I saw the choir in their prime, faces alight with passion as they lifted their hymn to the heavens. Then the scene shifted, blood dripping onto marble floors, faces contorted in terror and pain, the ritual spiraling out of control and binding them to this forsaken place. I felt the raw anguish of their eternal suffering, a tragic symphony that mirrored my own desperation and grief. The stained glass windows, fractured and stained with age and neglect, cast fractured crimson light across the altar, bathing the room in a hellish glow. The choir's disembodied hymn rose once more, a chilling reminder of the fate that awaited me should I falter. The music was no longer a distant echo. It was a living, breathing entity, twisting the air into a suffocating embrace. I closed my eyes, struggling to steady my breath. This knowledge was a double-edged sword, horrified me, but it also granted me a sliver of understanding. The choir was not merely an enemy to be fought. They were a curse to be unraveled, a tragic legacy I might yet defy. But with every note that slipped into my veins, I felt the pull tighten, the blood and music weaving around my soul like chains. Could I find a way to break their eternal covenant? Or was the very act of uncovering their history the final thread that bound me to their unending hymn? The cathedral seemed to pulse in answer, the walls humming with a sinister rhythm that promised no escape, only the endless crimson song. As I turned from the altar, Sister Miriam's voice lingered in my mind, a whisper of hope and warning. To understand the curse is to glimpse the key. But beware, the closer you come to the truth, the deeper the choir song will sink into your soul. The cathedral's shadows stretched long and cold as I ventured further into the gloom, each step a beat in the dark symphony of my fate. The past had revealed itself, but the future remained shrouded in blood and music. A melody I was only beginning to hear and one I might never escape. I pressed on, aware that the choir's lament was not just a warning but an invitation, one I could no longer refuse. The Crimson Covenant awaited, and with it, the ultimate choice that would seal my soul's destiny. The cathedral's hymn rose again, haunting and eternal, and I knew that the next note would be mine, to sing or to silence forever. The dying light filtered through fractured stained glass, casting kaleidoscopic shards of color across the cold stone floor and Ilias's pale, gaunt face. The cathedral seemed to breathe with a slow, mournful rhythm, each echo of the crimson choirs, him winding through the vaulted ceiling like a serpent coiling tighter around his mind. He sat huddled in a crumbling alcove, the weight of exhaustion pressing against every fiber of his being. His fingers trembled as they clutched the worn photograph, Lena's face frozen in a moment of radiant life, now a cruel reminder of loss and longing. The air was thick with dust and the faint metallic scent that had been his constant companion since he first crossed the threshold into this forsaken place. His breath came in shallow gasps, each one catching in the hollow of his chest as faint whispers curled around the silence. Then, like a fragile wisp of smoke, she appeared. Lena. Her presence was barely more than a shimmer, a pale, ghostly outline with eyes that held the soft glow of distant stars. She hovered just beyond reach, her form shimmering with an ethereal light that barely pierced the suffocating darkness. A breathless lullaby escaped her lips, the melody delicate and heart-wrenching as it wove through the empty nave, threading through Ilias's shattered soul. Ilias. The single word hung in the air, a fragile plea that stirred the raw ache within him. He wanted to reach out, to embrace the phantom of his lost love, but his hands passed through her like mist, cold and intangible. His heart clenched with a desperate ache, the cruel divide between memory and reality stretching wider with every moment. "Why do you linger?" he whispered, voice cracking beneath the strain. "Why can't you let me go?" Lena's eyes glimmered with sorrow, reflecting 1,000 unspoken regrets. "Because you're still holding on," she murmured, voice like the fading echo of a forgotten hymn. "Because you haven't yet found the strength to let me rest." Tears welled in Elias's eyes, blurring the fractured light as it danced across the cracked marble. His fingers traced the edges of the photograph, fingertips cold and numb. Memories surged, laughter beneath sunlit skies, whispered promises in shadowed rooms, the warmth of her hand folded in his. But those days were swallowed by darkness, devoured by grief and the relentless pull of the cathedral's curse. Outside the alcove, the choir's hymn swelled, a dissonant chorus that clawed at his mind, twisting and turning like a cruel melody bound with blood. The voices were both distant and immediate, invisible yet suffocating, wrapping around his thoughts with relentless insistence. He felt the tug of possession growing stronger, the music seeping deeper into his veins, threatening to unravel what little remained of his will. "You must join us," the voices whispered, seductive and cold. "Sing with us forever." He clenched his jaw, fighting against the encroaching darkness. "No," he rasped, voice raw but resolute. "I won't be another lost soul in your eternal choir." The cathedral seemed to shudder in response, shadows stretching like grasping fingers across the walls. Lena's apparition flickered, her expression torn between sorrow and urgency. "Elias," she pleaded. Remember who you are. Remember the music that once gave you life. Don't let this place consume you. A sudden gust stirred the candle, flickering beside him, casting erratic shadows that danced like ghostly specters. For a moment, the oppressive weight lifted, replaced by a fragile glimmer of hope. Elias closed his eyes and drew a shaky breath, summoning the flickering flame of resilience buried deep within his fractured spirit. But the respite was brief. As he opened his eyes, the choir's voices rose, again, louder, more insistent, weaving a sinister harmony that threatened to break him. The cathedral pulsed with malevolent life, and in the distance, the faintest hint of a crimson trail glistened, leading deeper into the darkness. Elias stood, unsteady but unyielding, and took a step forward. The fading light was slipping away, but so long as even a single note of his own song remained, he would fight to reclaim it. For Lena, for himself, and for the fragile hope that somewhere beyond the choir's eternal hymn lay freedom. The battle was far from over. The fading light within him flickered, fragile, trembling, yet stubbornly alive. I had sensed their presence before, that suffocating weight in the air, the faint whispers threading through the broken stained glass. But nothing prepared me for the moment they revealed themselves in full an eruption of shadows and blood, violent and raw, consuming the nave like a living nightmare. The cathedral pulsed with a sinister rhythm, each note a dagger twisting deeper into my mind, each breath a struggle against the invisible noose tightening around my throat. The first figure emerged from the darkness, a silhouette smeared in crimson, its face a grotesque mask of anguish and rage. As others followed, a chorus of distorted faces merged into a single terrible hymn, their voices rising in a cacophony that shattered the silence and shook the ancient stones. The music was no longer a melody, but a weapon, crashing over me in waves of torment. I staggered backward, heart hammering as the spectral hands of the choir clawed toward me, intangible but suffocating. The air grew cold, thick with the scent of rusted iron and decay, choking off my breath. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet my feet felt rooted to the cracked marble beneath me. The blood that stained the floor seemed to pulse in time with the choir's unholy song, drawing me deeper into their grasp. Then, through the storm of sound and shadow, a softer presence materialized. Sister Miriam's ethereal form shimmered beside me, her pale face framed by the tattered habit, her eyes glowing faintly red. Her voice, fragile and distant, wove through the chaos like a lifeline. Hold fast, Elias. Remember who you are. Her words were a fragile thread amidst the overwhelming tide, but they sparked a flicker of resistance within me. I clawed at the invisible bonds, gasping for air as the choir's grip tightened. Memories of Lena flashed through my mind, her smile, the warmth of her touch spurring me to fight the encroaching darkness. But the choir was relentless. Their hymn grew louder, more insistent, invading every corner of my consciousness. The faces contorted with silent screams, their eyes pleading and accusing all at once. I felt my identity fraying, the music seeping into my veins, threatening to drown me in an endless sea of despair. As the spectral hands closed in, I reached deep within, grasping at the last remnants of my will. The cathedral itself seemed alive, the stones humming with the cursed melody. My breath hitched as visions overwhelmed me, Father Ambrose's desperate ritual, Sister Miriam's fading hope, Lena's fading light, all converging into a maelstrom of torment. I cried out, a sound swallowed by the choir's unending song, teetering on the edge of oblivion. Yet, even as I felt myself slipping, a spark of defiance ignited. This was not the end, not yet. I would not become another lost voice in their eternal hymn, but the battle had taken its toll. My limbs trembled, my mind a fractured mosaic of fear and determination. The choir's presence lingered, a dark shadow at the edge of my vision, promising that the final confrontation was still to come. The cathedral's walls seemed to close in, the hymn echoing endlessly, a reminder that the nightmare was far from over. I stood alone in the silence that followed, the echo of the spectral choir still ringing in my ears. The crimson trail beneath my feet felt heavier now, a binding chain I had yet to break. With Sister Miriam's whispered warnings still fresh in my mind, I knew the path forward was fraught with peril, but I could not turn back, not now, not ever. The cathedral waited, alive and hungry, and so did the hymn. I took a shaky breath and stepped forward into the darkness, ready to face whatever came next. The cathedral's ancient stones vibrated with the choir's unrelenting hymn, a dissonant wave crashing against the fragile walls of my sanity. I stood motionless at the altar, the cold marble biting into my knees as the invisible chorus swelled around me. Their voices somewhere between a whisper and a roar wove through the air, thick and suffocating, each note a claw tearing at the edges of my mind. I felt the spectral shadows twisting and writhing at my feet, rising like tendrils of smoke laced with blood, their presence as tangible as the chill seeping through my bones. My breath came in ragged bursts. The cathedral's stained glass windows fractured, the once vibrant hues bleeding into a crimson flood that bathed the chamber in hellish light. The sharp scent of rusted iron filled my nostrils, mingling with the low hum of the choir's song. Within the swirling haze, fleeting images flashed, faces distorted by pain, eyes hollow and pleading, mouths stretched in unending song. They were trapped in this eternal lament, and now, so was I also, the choir demanded. A sudden, spectral warmth brushed my shoulder. Sister Miriam's pale figure emerged from the shadows, her tattered habit fluttering like a dying flame. Her eyes, faintly glowing red, locked with mine, conveying an urgency words could not. "Fight," she whispered, her voice threading through the hymn, fragile yet resolute. "Do not let them claim you." Her presence was a fragile lifeline, a flicker of humanity in this nightmare. But even as I grasped at it, the choir's melody surged, seeping into my veins like poison. A violent tempest raged within me, the desire to surrender, to relinquish the unbearable weight of my grief and weakness, clashing against the fierce, stubborn ember of resistance. My muscles tensed. Sweat slicked my skin as I clenched my fists, nails digging into the marble. Then, with a raw, desperate howl, I answered the choir not with their cursed hymn, but with my own fractured, defiant melody. It rose from deep within, jagged and trembling, a counterpoint to the eternal song that sought to drown me. The cathedral shook, dust falling from shattered vaults as my voice clashed with the spectral choir. A battle of wills sung in blood and shadow. Pain exploded behind my eyes, the strain burning through every fiber of my being, yet I held on. Each note was a stake driven into the heart of possession, each breath a refusal to be consumed. The choir faltered, their voices wavering as if surprised by my resilience. But the fight was far from over. My identity, my very soul, hung in the balance between the suffocating embrace of the crimson hymn and the fragile hope of freedom. I fell to my knees, panting, the echoes of the choir's retreating song lingering like a curse. Sister Miriam knelt beside me, her ethereal hand brushing my cheek, a silent blessing or perhaps a farewell. The cathedral seemed to still, the oppressive weight momentarily lifted, though the crimson light persisted, staining the air with dread. I had survived this moment, but the breaking point was only the threshold of what awaited. The eternal hymn still called, its shadows waiting patiently for me to falter again. In the silence that followed, I knew the choice ahead would demand everything: my soul, my sanity, and the last shreds of hope I clung to. And so, with trembling heart and burning spirit, I prepared to face what the choir had in store next. The line between victory and surrender thinner than the fragile notes of a dying song. The thick, stale air of the cathedral seemed to pulse with a breath of its own as I stood motionless among the shattered choir stalls. The faintest flicker of movement caught my eye, a pale, ethereal figure coalescing from the shadows. Sister Miriam, her tattered nun's habit billowed silently, and the faint red glow of her eyes pierced the gloom like distant embers struggling to stay alive. "Elias," she whispered, voice trembling yet steady, "you've come far, but the path you tread is fraught with peril beyond your imagining." I swallowed hard, the weight of the cathedral's silence pressing down on me. "I must know," I said, voice barely above a breath. "How did you try to break the curse? What happened to you?" Her gaze softened, a flicker of sorrow crossing her translucent face. "Once, I too sought freedom from the Crimson Choir's eternal song. I believed that by confronting the heart of the ritual, I could undo the blood-bound chains that trap us all." The cathedral seemed to lean in, the broken stained glass casting jagged patterns of color that danced like restless spirits across the cracked marble floor. "The ritual," she continued, "was a covenant forged in desperation, a promise of eternal life through music. But the price was far greater than any of us foresaw. The blood we spilled did not grant salvation. It bound us in torment." Her voice faltered, memories surfacing like wounds reopened. "I ventured into the sacred crypt beneath the altar, seeking the source of the choir's power. There, I found the remnants of the ancient rite, blood-streaked tomes, and the instruments of our damnation. I felt a chill seep into my bones, the oppressive darkness thickening around us. I tried to undo what Father Ambrose began," she confessed, "to sever the bond between music and blood. But the ritual fought back. It claimed a piece of my soul, shattered it. I am caught between worlds, neither free nor bound entirely." Her glowing eyes met mine, and in them I saw the flicker of a desperate hope. "You have a chance, Elias," she said softly. "But know this, breaking the curse will demand more than courage. It will demand sacrifice." The cathedral's walls seemed to pulse in rhythm with a distant, melancholic hymn, a haunting melody that wrapped around my heart like a shroud. "What sacrifice?" I asked, voice tight with tension. "Your very essence," she replied. "To untangle the crimson threads woven into your soul, you must give something in return. Your identity, your memories, perhaps even your will. Freedom is not granted without cost." A silence fell between us, thick and suffocating. The ghostly hymn grew louder, echoing through the broken nave, a mournful chorus that seemed to bind the air itself. "I will help you," she vowed, "but only if you are willing to pay the price." Hope and fear warred within me, each note of the choir's song clawing at the edges of my sanity. Yet beneath the dread, a fragile ember of determination kindled. "Tell me what I must do," I said, voice resolute despite the terror curling in my gut. Sister Miriam reached out, her spectral hand passing through mine like a whisper of cold wind. "Follow the blood trail deeper," she instructed. "Seek the chamber hidden beneath the altar where the final ritual echoes still. There you will find the means to confront the choir and reclaim your soul if you have the strength to endure." As her form began to fade, The last words she spoke lingered in the air, heavy with portent. Remember, Elias, the choir's song is eternal, but so too is the hope that one day the melody might be silenced. Left alone in the cathedral's heart, I pressed my palms against the cold marble, the faint crimson stains beneath my fingers throbbing like a pulse. The choice ahead was clear, yet impossible: embrace the choir's eternal hymn, or risk losing everything in a desperate bid for freedom. The shadows lengthened, and the haunting melody swelled around me, a bittersweet requiem for the damned and the hopeful alike. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the journey into the cathedral's darkest depths, where the final reckoning awaited. And as the hymn whispered its seductive promise, I knew that the path Sister Miriam revealed was my only hope, fragile, perilous, and drenched in sacrifice. The Crimson Choir's song was far from over, but perhaps, just perhaps, its eternal reign could be broken. And with that sliver of hope, I stepped forward into the shadows, the cathedral alive with silent anticipation.